If you're staring down the rising cost of college and wondering how families actually make this work, you're going to love this conversation. I'm talking with Brian Eufinger, who has done deep, no nonsense understanding of how teeny tiny small academic changes can lead to really big merit aid awards when going to college. He's created a fantastic tool that helps students see exactly where their efforts can pay off, literally. With tuition climbing and everyone asking whether college is still worth it, this kind of strategy matters more than ever to savvy parents. Okay, let's go ahead and get right to it. Brian, welcome back to the show. I was shocked when I saw it was previously episode 42, and we're well more than 100 episodes since then. It's great to have you back.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So this last time we had you on, we talked about grade inflation, which is still alive and well, correct?
It is very and getting more so by the day.
Yes, it is. And it was interesting when I was thinking about the topic for today, merit aid, as it relates to like what you can do to get more and really know before you go possibly and what choices you can make to impact that. I'm like, oh, they are like, adjacent topics a little bit. So we were talking earlier, and I love your personal story about why this is a passion to empower families to earn more merit aid directly from the colleges. And I want you to share that because I think it's inspirational.
Sure. So my wife and I run Edison Prep, a SAT, ACT tutoring company based out of Atlanta, but tutor people worldwide. And both of us paid for all of college, room, board, tuition. We were happily bought. I'm not athletic. We were happily bought for our good grades and test scores. So I approach all my teaching and just my work in life from a place of gratitude because I quit JV tennis is the story I tell our kids. And I spent just 1/3 of the hours I got back from quitting JV tennis. It was JV, not varsity. The coach was not too sad. But just 1/3 of the hours of one sport for one season can transform your scores. And so a lot of parents, they love their kids, but sometimes they don't believe in their kids and they don't realize like what we do is not it's not hard, but it's not easy, but it's not hard. It is commas, it's rectangles, it's pretty mundane stuff if you're willing to put the work in. So I will never earn more money per hour. I was earning 650 at Kohl's in the stock room that summer.
Whoa.
650 an
Actually, that's
hour.
fantastic because I'm a little bit older than you. Minimum wage was 335 when I
There you
was,
go.
yeah.
But let's just say it's thousands per hour is what I earned on those 60 hours or so I was studying for the SAT and ACT. So college is officially my alma mater is 268% as expensive now as it was then. So there were a lot of reasons to study for these tests and get good grades back in 1999 and even more so today.
And so you're saying these grades are translating into money.
For sure.
And
I
so,
applied I applied to 19 schools back in 1999, and the evolution of merit aid is so different because I do not like the fact that the Common App today means a lot of kids apply to 20 schools, like spray and pray. It's just mom's credit card. But I'm a hypocrite because I did the same thing back in year 2000 when I graduated. I applied to 19 schools because you would ask schools, "Hey, Emory, do you give out merit aid?" Maybe just apply and find out. There was no transparency. So we are living in a golden age of merit aid if people are willing to put in some legwork on things. But we've gone from this era where it was hidden and abstract. Now it's published and concrete and transparent. Now, whether that's due to magnanimity on the college's parts for being transparent or exhaustion because
ha ha
parents keep
ha.
calling and harassing them, yeah. So I don't know, but I love that more schools are publishing real merit aid data on their websites.
Okay, so let's back up for a second. We've done some of our most popular episodes are those that are around like paying for college, defraying the cost, how to do it smartly. They are among our most popular episodes because it is a gigantic investment. I just finished paying for my last child about a year and a half ago. All my kids are out now and it just, keeps going up. We have had like one of my favorite guests for paying for college is Dave, the scholarship guy, scholarship GPS. He's aimed at private scholarships. Then the colleges offer need based and merit based scholarships. So private we're not going to really talk about those today that much. I think on your website, what was the stat you gave? What percentage of college scholarships are private?
90+% of the money that's ever going to come out is going to come directly from the school via their own Kohl's Cash style discount.
Okay, so 90% of discounts on that cost of attendance will be granted by the institution. And then the other 10% is coming out in the wild that Dave's talking to people about how to go find those. And his son went to college for free for on private scholarships. And so there is a way to do that. But I it's a lot of work, but there is a methodology to that.
Mhm.
However, your argument is there's a bigger pot that the institutions have. But that institutional money, there's two types. Let's talk about the two types of that 90% of the discounts.
Sure. So there's need-based aid and merit-based aid. Need-based aid is based on a lot of different numbers from your tax forms. There's the FAFSA for public schools and the CSS profile for some of the more selective private schools, but it matters how much your parents make. And a lot of people are caught in that messy donut hole middle where they're told they're too rich for aid, but like they can't write a random $90,000 check for University of Miami, which just actually crested $100,000 actually as of this year.
Gosh.
And on the other hand, merit aid grids, you could be, Arthur Blank's son down here in Atlanta, and it wouldn't matter. Like do you have this GPA? Do you have that test score? Therefore, this is what we give you, no questions asked. And that transparency and the certainty is what parents like when in this, because there's so much confusion around the entire college application process. It's one of the few touch points of just raw transparency.
Yeah, I just finished we did a live version of our college list building tutorial. And what we do is we give teaching video, short 10-minute teaching video, and a worksheet to families to have a conversation each week for 4 weeks. And we're not building their college list for them, but we're trying to get families on the same page. And the hardest conversations, they always say the hardest ones to have, it's not about social fit or how far away or academic, can we get in or do they have the right college major? It's the financial fit. It's the paying for college. And to your point earlier, you were talking about back when you went in the 90s, back when I went in the 80s, it was more of a crapshoot. Like, we can't tell you if we're going to give you money. So you would apply and then it would just be a surprise. So there was no way really to have a target to know if it was affordable, which I always say to parents, you do not want your kid to fall in love with the campus to go do a college visit for a school that you can never afford, because the tears and the crying and the gnashing of teeth that happens when you realized you can't afford your favorite school is the cost of that emotionally is high. So what's changed?
I mean, like I said, what's changed is now school and the web has evolved. I mean, the web existed in 2000, but the web is much more mature now. And so it's easier to publish data that may have only been privately disclosed via rules of thumb in in-person campus visits back in 1999. So it is nice that they're doing that. But the other thing is, when I applied to 19 schools, I knew I would get into most of them based on my metrics. But these schools who were ostensibly peer schools have such different levels of aid they gave out. Georgetown gave me $32. That's a 4-year number. My dad climbed telephone poles for a living, but okay, Georgetown. But not to be outdone, Cornell gave me nothing, and then Emory gave me half, and WashU gave me 3/4. Now, to your point about Dave earlier, I want to give him a shout out where I like to use the airplane analogy. Like when the airplane's going down, you put the mask on yourself first and your kids second. The merit aid from the school is the putting your mask on yourself. But after you're done with that, if a kid has free time, definitely apply to some of those outside scholarships, because I got 3/4 of the money straight from Washington University in St. Louis, which is where I went to undergrad, straight from them. But the other 1/4, I filled the gap with Eagle Scout scholarship, local Chamber of Commerce scholarship, Rotary scholarship. All, they add up a little bit. But once you've secured the main source of funding from the school, then you can top it off and write some essays and see if you can get some extra aid from some of those scholarships that Dave talks about too.
So there are some schools that give no merit aid. They do not hand out merit awards with nearly 4,000 colleges and universities in the US. Any idea like what percentage of them they're not going to offer any kind of discount?
I don't have a good number on that, but I will say there's a correlation between some of those who give out no merit aid and those who have very magnanimous grants. Where at MIT, for example, if you make under 200K as a family, which 90 what percent of Americans' families do not make 200K plus, then they're just like, yeah, we're good. and they give you full tuition at MIT. So my family was under that by a landslide. So I'm very jealous of some of these guarantee, like Emory Advantage. I don't know the number right now, but Emory has a not quite as generous one as MIT has, but there's a huge correlation between those who give the least merit. If you are in, say, the bottom 90% of the income distribution, you get a standard chance of getting some money still.
And that would be like what you just said over at MIT. Like that's more need. That is a
Correct.
need
Yeah.
based. Even though that number is very high, under 200,000, it's still need based grant that is not going to need to be repaid.
Correct.
So if a family, as they're like peeling the onion on this topic and trying to figure it out and really engineer this correctly, as a first step, how could they, and I also, so I didn't expect you to say, oh, yes, Lisa, it's this percentage of schools that offer no merit. And to your point, a lot of those will offer more generous need based, not all of them. How would a family find out if this is a school that their kiddo likes or is on their radar, offers merit or not? What would you suggest they do?
So there's public merit and private merit, and I mean that by transparency. So one thing I did this summer, it's a passion project. I hired one of our former students to help us as an intern this summer to build meritaidgrids.com. So meritaidgrids.com is a site where there's 180 schools and growing that have these beautiful transparent grids where there's a graph, GPA on the one side, and then test scores on the other that promises you this money. And so it's very neat. It has a map of the US when you click on there, and you can click on the state of Missouri and scroll down and pick Mizzou or pick SLU or pick whatever. And it just has the data. It links not on our site, it links directly to the college site. So over time, as the numbers change, it's still up to date. And I've been gratified since we published it. We've had like 18 people submit new schools, often their alma
Hmm.
mater, saying, "Hey, you forgot James Madison or whatever." So it's a living, breathing database. It's free. It's not associated with Edison Prep. It's just I built it because I'm grateful that we were able to pay for all of college, and my same with my wife via these tests. And regret is such a hard emotion. And in our work with Edison Prep, just dealing with clients, we tutor up and down the entire family tree usually. And so when a mom finds out on her fourth kid that, wait, the same school the other three went to, I could have gotten this much aid and didn't know, like you can't come back from that. Like the regret of like, I could have retired, I could have been an ER nurse for 7 years less. Like that's heartbreak. And so,
Ouch.
I can spend a little money. I'm not on food stamps, it's fine, and build this. And then hopefully parents can over time save, tens of millions of dollars of avoided aid that had people just known to look for it, they're there. Now I know you're in Ohio, and this is so cool. It's called this. I might be misquoting it. The Starlight Diner or something. It's in Piqua, and so some dad, the Merit Aid Grid's website's been picked up on Yahoo Finance and TV print. And it's gone pretty viral. And some random dad in Piqua had been resigned to the fact that my kid's just going to go to community college. I'm screwed. I'm in that donut hole where there's not enough money. I think he's a car mechanic. And he said, if you ever go to I think it's the Starlight Diner in downtown Piqua, you tell him breakfast is on me. This is Randy. And so just some guy. So, I mean, that's just one example. But like,
Nowhere near here, but if I'm driving up I-75 to go to Michigan, I
yeah.
probably will stop knowing
Yeah,
that.
but it's a neat. That was a nice heart. I mean, I'm not super sappy, but that was a really neat phone call to get because it does have big impacts. He was already resigned to, gonna have to say go to community college, live at home the first 2 years to try and cut costs, and then figure it out. And different states are different levels of generosity. But the thing that's important is a lot of parents assume it might be podunk schools. It's state flagships. I mean, we have Auburn's on there, Mizzou's on there, Michigan State. I mean, it's more public than private on the Merit Aid Grids website. And I have one intern, former student of ours, who's going to be uploading a bunch of HBCUs actually. So she is going to do a deep dive on that. So we're going to keep building this out to try and help people.
So how many schools do you have right now?
189, don't quote me, but it'll be over 200 probably by the time this episode gets published.
So first step would be go to meritaidgrids.com. We'll
Hmm.
put this in the show notes and look for your school. If you don't see it there, then I just did with John Durante. He's fantastic, the College Admissions Process podcast, and we did a live event this week. His whole thing was born out of just like be a wise consumer, reach out to the people at the colleges. They're going to answer your questions. So if the school's not on your website, first of all, submit the school so that you put it on your website, but then shoot an email to the school and just ask, right? Like, how would a parent word that email to say, "Are you giving merit?" I mean, maybe that's all they need to
Yeah,
say.
no, you can say, yeah, we're trying to decide whether to visit or not, and just wanna we don't want to waste your time or our time. Are there any parameters you might give me to have a sense of what merit might be possible? And one thing I want to say, there's more public than private on our on the Merit Aid Grids website, but let's talk TCU, SMU, St. John's. There's certain schools that will not publish a Merit Aid Grids, but we have enough students from our company that we've sent to those places where kids who are slightly different in their numbers get offered, different price tags and things. So there's no way to have a large enough sample size for someone like you or I to
Right.
reconstruct or reverse engineer the grids. But a lot of schools that don't publish them still may have them. And the other thing is, it's a lot of parents, as you know, on groups like Paying for College 101 and Facebook, are fashionably pessimistic. I'll never be able to afford this stuff. You don't have to have a top 1% score to get this merit aid. My sisters both went to Mizzou. It has a great journalism program, business program, other programs. You can get as much as $34,000 of after-tax money from Mizzou with as little as a 23 on the ACT. That's a top 37%. Like just 2 out of 5 random people in your living room have a 23. So yes, the most money comes from higher scores, but there's a lot of very reasonable scores, including Mississippi Valley State, which is, we know that because that's where Jerry Rice went to school famously. You can have as little as a 24 and a 3.3 and get a full ride. And no one
Wow.
believes me. Like the most I can track it. The most clicked school on the website is like, shut up. There's no way. But yeah, I mean, there's hopefully it's not doesn't get overfished in the pond and it goes away. But like I mean, there's different levels of deals. Even if your student is not Mr. Valedictorian or Miss Valedictorian, you can still get some pretty good merit aid at various places.
So you had mentioned, and I want to go back to this. There's sort of this publicly published merit grids that are actually on the college website. Some of them have it. I recently was on University of Kentucky's. They always have had this grid. It's interesting. Miami University here, right outside of Cincinnati, used to have a grid, and they did not put they've changed how they do it since test optional happened. But with this, they've got Cleveland State University. They also have a grid. I know I published it in a Facebook group that you and I are in for the National Test Prep Association. And so there's publicly, but like you're also saying, there's also you're reverse engineering, looking at the awards that people get, and you're getting some ideas about this as well, right?
Sure. I mean, and not to pick on a school, but if you want me to not pick on you, maybe you give out some aid to some people. Like there's in the Southeast, there's a lot of money given out. Alabama gives out tons of money, so does
Yeah.
Ole Miss, so does Auburn, etc. Versus, Clemson would rather do almost anything in the world to give a single dime to a single person for any reason. And so there's just that's how it's always been. I hope they change that. But that is, no one should expect out of state to get a single dime from Clemson for any reason unless you're Trevor Lawrence or something. But so learning the culture and talking to some parents that are 1 year older than you who might have gotten some aid awards from various places, you can get a sense of the culture of aid or not aid at schools, even the ones that don't publish them, who historically is better and worse. Now, I do want to mention, since I just mentioned Alabama, one of my favorite stories of all of 2024. I love slash hate when moms put me on awkward group texts with them plus me plus the kid. And so what happened was mom and
Kids
dad both
also hate that.
yeah, mom and dad both were college sweethearts at Alabama, at University of Alabama, and the mom texted me roughly, "Hi, Mr. Brian, this is so and so. I let my son know that I expect him to do the homework now. Thank you for showing me that Alabama data. My husband and I are both alums, as you know, and we can afford full price Alabama, but we, on principle, will not pay full price Alabama." And so I texted her back. I'm like, "It's okay. He's really close. He needs to fix just 38 out of his 75 ACT errors, half, and he'll get $112,000. If you get a 30 at Alabama, you get $112,000 of post-tax money, no questions asked. So I'm like, each question is 3 grand. If he can pause that job, he has some useless minimum wage job that was not useful and costing him a lot of money per hour relative to studying for the ACT. I'm like, if he can pause that job you mentioned, this will pay a lot more per hour. And she replies the funniest line. She goes, "Oh, my husband already saw that merit aid grid. He is pausing his job, and my husband told him that he could either get the 30 on the ACT and get that money and roll tide, or he can just roll Kennesaw and roll Kennesaw State here
Poor
locally. Yeah,
Kennesaw.
they're a great school. They have come way up these last 20 years. But free Kennesaw, you can live at home because they live right down the street from Kennesaw. But yeah, roll Tide or roll Kennesaw, and
That's hilarious.
he responded, "Mom, stop." But yeah,
To
so
my point, no teenager likes it if their mom puts them in a group text. Even my 20 somethings don't always, I still get pushback. Okay, so, first of all, figure out if a school offers merit. If they do, then what I heard was for the schools who kind of what the grid is, and you just named Alabama. I have a child that went to Alabama, not only full tuition, he also got an engineering scholarship, and they were cutting him a check. So
wow.
full tuition. And funny enough, he thought that check was his. I'm like, dude, I'm paying room and board, which is like, 14,000 or whatever. This was a while ago. It probably wasn't that much. This was 2016. But I said, that check's mine, hand it over. So you've got schools like that. And what I just heard was you then were able to reverse engineer how much this kid should be studying for the ACT to get the award to make that school. I mean, in this family's case, it wasn't to make it in budget, but what they were willing to pay. I mean, there's what we're able to pay and there's what we're willing to pay. I always say most of us, if we get pre-qualified for a mortgage, most people that I know, they don't max what they're approved for on that mortgage. They do not want to be house poor. They want to put furniture in it and still be able to go on vacations. And so the bank will approve you for more, but most people aren't going to spend it. That family is a perfect example of that. They, use my analogy, were approved for more, but they didn't want to be college poor. So how do you do this reverse engineering, or how could a parent do this reverse
Yeah.
engineering to know if their kid should pause their job?
So there's good news and bad news. So the ACT, the first thing I do in my tutoring sessions when I have kids' goals is I say, "What's your goal?" Because there's no need for overkill or underkill.
Like, what's your
And
goal
so
score?
we'll take the back page of any ACT test has the score scale, and I show them if you can just fix 8 grammar questions, 5 math questions, however many questions, then you can be done. Hope and prayer is not motivational for teenagers, but if you can show them the end zone, fix this many, and I get to be done and move on with high school, then they work a lot harder. And so it's very concrete. So that's aspirational, where you build your ACT score up. What is also important from a caution standpoint is watching the GPA/senioritis. I have a student who got his transcript, and luckily his mom's a CPA, and she calculated this for him, and he was really thankful because she didn't have enough money to pay for Tennessee unless he gets the merit aid. And if he Tennessee, I think at the time, calculated it through 7 semesters of GPA, not 6. And so his first semester senior grades, he found out he had like a 3.805 or something. And so if he got, like, based on the number of classes at his school, if he got 2 Bs, he would cost his mom 70 grand, like gone, no aid. Like he would drop off the cliff, like, because it's a cliff, like 3.79, oops, 3.8, yay. And so in his case, he's glad he calculated it. I'm allowed to have 1 B. Otherwise, I have to, go down the street to local U. And so being very cautious and having students calculate their transcript to understand how many A's and B's. It's not just SAT, ACT. It's SAT, ACT, but it's also not losing the GPA front. Now, I will say one thing. For whatever reason, most places have a GPA that's so lenient it's not funny. Like at Auburn, all 4 levels of Auburn's merit aid grid are at 3.5, which it takes a lot more than 3.5 to get in Auburn in the first place.
Right.
So yes, at Auburn, the entire grid is essentially just your score. At other places, it's a little bit more nuanced between GPA and test scores.
So there's an impact of both test scores and GPA on this. So, and you can calculate both. I think, honestly, and maybe it's just because I come from previously the world of test prep in my previous life, but to me, it's easier to calculate the reverse engineer the test score piece of this. GPA is well, we kind of talked about this in our last episode together. GPA is very confusing to a lot of families. Did you find as you were building meritaidgrids.com that most schools, and you may or may not know this, but I'm curious, you referenced like Tennessee used to do 7 semesters on the GPA, so that would put you into the first semester senior year. Now it's back to 6 semesters, Are
Yeah.
most schools at 6 semesters as they're calculating the GPA piece of this?
With I don't have the exact number, but my spidey sense, just from entering the data and working in the trenches, is it used to be a majority back. A majority used to be 7 semesters, and now a majority are 6 semesters, which makes sense because now that regular decision is almost irregular decision, and early action is like only action at a lot of schools, it makes sense that they would just might as well calculate it based on the 6 semesters. So that way, when that kid is all happy and they get in early action, there's not some trap door that falls out
Right.
after semester 7 and makes them all sad.
Well,
So
I
yeah,
think too, I think back to like 26 years ago when I started doing this work, college application deadlines were February 1st everywhere, not just, not just at like a non-selective school. And now those of all like we're looking at October 15th, we're looking November 1st, arguably is the most popular date. So if you're listening to this as a parent, hopefully you're hearing this even as a sophomore, a parent of a sophomore or parent a kid who's listening to it as a sophomore. That gives you time. It gives you the whole junior year to kind of like, what do my grades have to be at the end of this year? How many more ACT or SAT points do I need to get so that on this grid I'm able to qualify? So, am I right?
yeah,
It's
it's very
interesting.
concrete.
Yeah, it's not that complicated, and your website does a fantastic job of walking them through what this looks like. It was funny. I wonder how much you see this. When I posted that Cleveland State University in the group chat that we were in the National Test Prep Association, what I pointed out was it's interesting to me that a school that would be accepts most of the students who apply, far more than 50% of the students who apply, they actually were dinging kids on their awards if they applied test optional. I see the same thing. I was looking at both of them together, but the University of Kentucky grid, which is not, as is more selective than Cleveland State, it did the same thing. So how do you see test optional playing into this?
Yeah, I mean, well, some of them, like Auburn, they're test optional. They're test preferred. 94% of people who get into Auburn set scores. But yes, or Alabama, test optional for now at least. But you have to have scores for merit. There are so many schools where you have to have scores for merit, but they are ostensibly test optional for admission. Or that's the worst case scenario. The better case,
Question everybody needs to be asking,
well,
right?
the better case scenario is sometimes the very last row of the column is test optional, where it's lower than the lowest level of the test scores. And so either way, it's going to cost you, at least four, often five figures of money per year by applying test optional. I mean, that's the funny part. And I don't have to tell you this, but your listeners might not realize. So my wife and I were a two-person company for the first 12 years that we ran our company, and I wasn't looking to grow. And we started filling up a year in advance once parents found out that the test optional, other than the three Pacific states at least, is not really optional. We're now a team of 23, and I'm exhausted. I'm tutoring more than ever. So test optional, not so optional. And like, you ever want to have me on an episode about test optional, you know how I feel about I'm pretty mellow as a person. The dishonesty triggers me because just be honest. Like, I have three NFL players that got into school that I tutored that got into the schools they got into with scores that do not match the schools they attended. Good for
Yep.
them. They're NFL players for a reason. But if you're just Sarah from Shaker Heights, Ohio, like no, this is like test optional is not meant for you. And so I think it's important to parents. I mean, Miami just swung that we've entered pendulum season. So
Right.
every year, MLK Day, Miami just went right back to mandatory. The next 2, 3 weeks, don't be surprised if you don't see possibly Princeton, possibly Emory, possibly a number of schools swing back.
Well, it's fair to say we need to say to the families that are listening that pendulum starts to swing in January, but in our discussions, there are plenty of schools that have said we'll get back to you by the end of June. So if we're going to put this episode out. I think we are recording in February, but we're going to put this out into the wild in March. But you could be listening to it right now, and a school that is currently test optional, if you listen to it when this goes live, could not be test optional by June. So don't
Yep.
count on it.
Or if it's optional for admission, it's still going to impact the price tag, and so it's still worth studying.
Well, did you come across many schools where test scores were optional for admission but required for merit? Are there any
Oh, a
cases of
huge number,
that?
a huge, an absolute dozens and dozens of the schools on meritaidgrids.com, Alabama most famously, they're not the highest bar to get in from an undergrad perspective for just getting in, but their entire merit grid is based on just scores. And so,
For
yes,
making it for making it super inexpensive, they are, the bar's high. You got to go out
yeah,
there
for,
and
for
earn
sure.
that.
Yeah, but there's 31 flavors of Baskin Robbins, test optional, where not test optional for direct admit Indiana Business School or honors college or sliding scale based on GPA or
Or
not
nursing or yeah.
nursing, not or homeschooled kids. Like
Yeah,
the odds that someone could build a list of 12 schools that are air quotes test optional that are fully no fine print test optional is very tiny.
I agree.
It's different flavors.
Absolutely. So parents start at meritategrids.com to see if Brian's got your school in there that you're looking at. If not, he'll put it on the to-do list. I heard you promise that, Brian. And then send an email to the colleges. Do you offer merit? How does test optional impact this? Do you have actual data or a page that you can give me? And then step three, reverse engineer that GPA and that ACT or SAT score to know what does the final, like when you hit the end of your junior year, what does the GPA and the test scores have to look like to earn you money? Right? Did I hit it in the right order, Brian? I was
Yeah,
taking good notes, I think. I don't
that's
know.
the exact that, and I would be remiss if I did not mention this at least once. As good as it would be for my pocketbook if all that mattered is SAT and ACT scores, I wish I could get in front of more audiences of eighth graders as they're signing up for math classes and hopefully taking a ambitious route. GPA is serious from day one because the
Yep.
at UGA, not at Harvard, the average number of Bs in core classes at UGA the first 6 semesters is 3.3. At UGA, not Harvard. Like in the 90s, C's were a thing. And so test scores matter once you're a junior. Like go study for the test once sophomore year is over. But staying on GPA as parents, like trust but verify, check that homework, log into the grade book, because so many people, I mean, unfortunately, a couple dozen a year at least, I turn away ethically in case hell is real. I have to turn them away because if you have a 2.7 and a cold 30 on the ACT, I can't take your money because anybody who's okay with a 2.7 will be thrilled with a 22, much less a 30.
All
And
right.
so,
It's not going to open the doors.
parents, please stay on your student from day one of high school on GPA.
Well, what I also just heard is if you're a parent of a high schooler who's college bound and you're listening to this and you have a younger child, Brian would be willing to give a blog or a talk or something to your school's parents of eighth graders. We need to get this out into the world. I just obligated you to do a whole bunch of work you probably don't have
I
time to
I
do.
speak to scout troops and YMSL and NCL and all that kind of stuff all the time.
So you're willing. Okay. So we will put Brian's contact in the show notes. Where do people find you? I mean, obviously, we want them
Yep.
to go to meritatedgrids.com, and I assume your contact's on there, but let's put it in the show notes too.
Yeah, so edisonprep.com, Edison like Thomas Edison, edisonprep.com, and then Edison Prep on Facebook. We publish a lot of really helpful stuff, everything from FAFSA to other Common App stuff on our Facebook and our Instagram pages. So happy to have you indulge in those resources. Just follow or like our pages.
Okay. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it.
No problem.